Now, let's talk some more about this whole story. We bring in Montana Senator Steve Daines, Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. I thank both of you, senators, for helping out on this. There's so much to talk about. To some extent, Senator Blackburn, I'll start with you because the thought occurs to me, and I've used the phrase, the historical arc of freedom. Dominoes can fall in the right direction, not always the wrong direction. And the dominoes seem to be falling in the right direction. Beginning, you could go back to the Middle East and bombing of Iran several months ago. I know that's an unfinished story, but nonetheless, it had tremendous impact. Now we have Venezuela. Dominoes may fall in Cuba. Freedom dominoes. It is possible. I hate to predict. I don't know about regime change in Iran, but there sure is as much unrest as we've seen in whatever 15 years, and those are opposing the mullahs and the military state and so forth. I mean, it is possible that Mr. Trump has triggered a chain reaction of freedom and regime change for the better. That's a possibility, is it not?
Well, indeed, it's a possibility. And I think one of the foundational elements is this. The United States of America goes in to liberate people. We do not go in to occupy countries. And people around the globe know that. And freedom is at a tipping point. People know Donald Trump is going to do exactly what he says he is going to do. The President of the United States is tremendous when it comes to follow through. And you look at what happened in Iran with the bombing that took place there on the oil fields, and that had an effect on their economy. It slows down money that is going to all these terrorist organizations. You look at what happened in Venezuela, and by the way, going after those drug boats in Venezuela, perp walking Maduro, apprehending him. Tennesseans are saluting the president for doing this. They want the drug issue stopped. He is saying no to drug dealers, and that's a good thing. And now you look at what is happening in Iran, and what I'm hearing from some Iranians that live in Tennessee is that young people in Iran are getting information. They're using the Open Technology Fund, which we, the USA, has. Rep. Michael McCall and I have championed this. They're getting Starlink in. People are communicating. So whether it is Cuba, Iran, Venezuelans, what you see is people want their shot at freedom, at opportunity. They know Donald Trump and the USA will deliver and help them. First of all, Senator Daines, thanks for helping out. We appreciate it. Senator Blackburn makes a lot of good points. I love the Starlink point. I really love that. The more we can get that mounted, the more information that we will have, and the Elon Musk part of that, Senator Daines. But I don't know, do we want to wait and let the Iranian people make the regime change, Senator Daines? Or do you think the president, this is an impossible question, but you answered the impossible questions on a routine basis. Do we have, if the killing is 500 or 1,000 or 5,000, I don't know, perhaps you have better information, perhaps Ms. Blackburn does. Do we let them do it, or does the president come in the second time, having bombed the heck out of them the first time? I don't know what's left to bomb. How does this play out in your judgment?
Well, Larry, let's be clear. The Iranian people will drive the regime change regardless of any action taken by the United States. Right. This is a Berlin Wall moment for the Middle East. If you're 45 years old or younger, you've only grown up knowing there's been an Ayatollah in charge in Iran. But I'm old enough to remember, you are as well, Larry, that we used to have Iran as an ally of the United States. The Iranians were helping us in the Middle East. They were helping us push back on then the Soviet influence in the Middle East. This is a remarkable moment. And by the way, it's not by accident. It's been very intentional because of great leaders like President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, with moral clarity, been very decisive. They understand what it takes here to restore true peace and prosperity in the Middle East. And you think about the Iranians. The Iranians and this regime, not the people, but the regime, are the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Let's not forget that. Hezbollah exists because of Iran. Hamas exists. The Houthis exist because of this current regime. So thank God for the resolve of President Trump, for the B-2 bombers that hit Fordo, for the message sent, as Senator Blackburn said, taking out the oil fields. The revenues have been declining, putting Iran in a crisis economically speaking. This is a moment that's been set up, and we pray and hope for the change coming here in Iran. They'll break the right way, and they'll really restore freedom and liberty to the great people of Iran.
Senator Blackburn, we need to get on a plane and go to Cuba. Mr. Trump made a very, I'll say, unambiguous Truth Social statement about Cuba. Cuba lived for many years, amounting
Venezuelan oil.
Living on oil and money from Venezuela. In return, Cuba promised security services. That was the secret police. I call them the Cuban KGB. They're all over the place, propping up the Venezuelan dictators, but not anymore. So he's saying, okay, there's now going to be a complete embargo, if I get this right. And I asked this question last week of some senior people. They weren't ready to answer it, but the president answered it. No oil, no money. How's Cuba going to exist here? How can they, even Cuba, people are leaving Cuba for years, but how can they exist? No oil, no money, but you got a lot of Cuban thugs that are still in Venezuela.
And what you have had is the bad actors have built this relationship one to another and have propped one another up. And bear in mind, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, that is your new axis of evil. And they have tried to pull in people like Venezuela. Venezuela has pulled along Cuba. And once you put these sanctions in place, and bear in mind, the Trump administration and President Trump know how to enforce sanctions. That is a big difference from the Biden administration. And when there is no ability for Venezuela to sell oil and get it to the market except through the United States, with those funds going into that custodial account for the people of Venezuela, then Cuba has no money. And so there is nothing to pay the Cuban force that has been there providing security in Venezuela. There is nothing for the Cuban people. And our hope would be that they would reach forward for freedom. And as Senator Daines said, it is going to be up to the people in Iran, in Cuba, in Venezuela to establish a more democratic form of government. We go in, we free people. We do not go in and overtake countries. And the good work that is being done now, I think the message to people is the United States is going to be here to support you as you fight for your freedom and your liberty. And the steps the president has taken, I know the Democrats are getting really squishy about this, but the president has shown his resolve to support people and to support the groups that are pushing for freedom and pushing out these regimes.
Senator Daines, the thing is, I've been waiting for Mr. Trump's statement. I loved it when he finally came out. Just cut it off. No more oil, no more money. The question is, how does it end? I mean, it's a Berlin Wall situation. I love that. I was around, you're right, when the old Shah of Iran, he wasn't perfect. I think his son is a more democratic-oriented leader, possibly in Iran. But with respect to Cuba, which has been, a pain in the you-know-what for so many years, nothing but troublemaker throughout the hemisphere. So, Senator Daines, with no oil and no money from Venezuela and the United States embargo, we have Cuba by the short hairs, Pardon me, ma'am, but that's what we have by the short hairs. They're going to have to do something very important, Senator Daines. I can't figure out how it's going to happen. I just know it's going to happen. There's going to be some big change in Cuba. Tell me how it's going to happen. I don't get it.
Well, one thing I do know for certain is that the Democrats, as they've led under Obama and under Biden, their appeasement strategy with these dictators is a failed strategy.
Awful.
And so you can't win through appeasement. There's one thing places like Iran and Cuba, Colombia, Venezuela understand, and that's strength. They respect strength. They exploit weakness. And so what it needs in Cuba is a spark. And once the people understand it's going to be okay for them to challenge the regime, you have these major disconnects between the leadership and the people. I would say Iran probably has the greatest disconnect of any country in the world between what the Ayatollah thinks and what the rest of people believe. Iran generally is a pro-U.S., pro-West country, but the leadership is out of touch. I think in Cuba, similarly, you've got the people there that are waiting for that spark. Don't underestimate Marco Rubio and President Trump, what they will do here going forward.
I believe Secretary of State Rubio not going to let Cuba off the hook. I'm glad to hear that Senator Blackburn agrees. I just think, boy, there's a story whose time has come and gone. Cuba, communist Cuba, finally. Anyway, you're both terrific. Thank you for helping us, Senator Steve Daines and Marsha Blackburn. I'm most grateful.